Chapter 33. Kayla couldn't help but be a little amused. Nelfree had spent all of her time up in the VIP room since their arrival with Syntholo at her side. It was reminiscent of a princess locked in a tower until suitably educated and refined for their public debut. The VIP suite had 2 rounded booths, a small bar area, a private bathroom, and a door leading to a playroom, which was for more intimate forms of recreation and relaxation. The bar had a selection of locally sourced beverages on tap, 3 stools, and an electronic menu board with a call button to summon the serving person assigned to the room. There was a round private dance floor offset on the side of the room furthest from the window. He'd shifted into his bestial form at some point while Kayla had been downstairs dealing with security. He was out for the evening with 3 bestial women, even if that status was honorary in Kayla's case. Blending in was pragmatic, so she couldn't be too bothered by his willingness to be in this form in the current circumstances. It was certainly helpful in trying to achieve his current objective. Syntholo was attempting to teach Nelfree to dance, or at least how to follow your partner's lead. Kayla struggled with her own jealousy. He was a great dancer, and they looked great together, but the way he was teaching Nelfree wasn't for her. She was being directed to keep her body loose and relaxed without quite going limp and following his movements. Syntholo's armor consisted of several layers of overlapping lengths of fabric, one of which he'd stretched around both of their waists to assist her. They looked like they were having a lot of fun. It looked intimate enough to make Kayla feel a little uncomfortable. The display built into one of the tables was currently inactive. Kayla headed to the bar area, put in her food and drink request, and sat at the table with the active display. She concentrated on learning how the screen worked, trying to ignore the giggles and whispers from a few yards away while waiting for the server to arrive. "You're doing fine," Syntholo said softly. "Are you sure this is okay?" Nelfree asked nervously. "A little closer," Syntholo directed. "Just relax your hips, and I'll guide them with my hands." "It's too hard," Nelfree complained softly. "Just relax and ease into it," Syntholo soothed. "You just need to get a feel for it." "I'm starting to get a little sore," Nelfree said timidly. "There it is, that's the rhythm right there," Syntholo cooed. "Can you feel that?" "I think so," Nelfree said in surprise. "My body just started taking over." "By the powers, will you two just fuck?" Kayla transmitted her thoughts unintentionally. "I'm sorry," Kayla blurted out. "I didn't mean to. It just sounded like." "Damn it, stop laughing at me." "Let's take a break," Syntholo laughed while leading Nelfree to the table. "Did it really sound that bad?" Nelfree couldn't contain her manic giggles. "He was just showing me how to move my hips." "Okay, I get it. You really need to get your mind out of the gutter." "I don't know," Kayla sighed. "I'm so damn sexually frustrated, I'm starting to think I should just buy some property in the gutter." "If that's your choice," Syntholo teased as he sat across from Kayla. "I'm not sure you can afford it. Have you considered a rental?" Kayla smirked. As he was sitting down, she noticed what looked like a weapon under the layers of his armor. The workers at the weapon check counter had given her grief about her tails but had allowed Syntholo into the club with some kind of weapon concealed under the swath of armored fabric tightly wrapped around his hips. There were a few privileges that were bestowed by his rank with the Kaylani Dominion and their treaties with the Midnight Fellowship. Despite the club's connection with a Lamentic house, Kayla was pretty sure her aunt had told her the Midnight Fellowship had a vested interest in the club. "I'm surprised, Kier, you didn't comment on that." Nelfree giggled as she started panning around the view screen. "I should check on her." "Speaking of mines taking up space in the gutter," Syntholo snickered. "I think that one has a long-term lease. She may not have read the message yet." "I envy her," Nelfree sighed. "She's a fairly average-looking Cayman, but she is so self-assured. I'm just out of my element in social settings. It may sound vain, but I know I'm a good nurse, and I've seen how men respond to me. Pride and confidence aren't quite the same thing." "Found her," Nelfree said excitedly as she zoomed in on Kiryu. Kayla was torn between the impulse to pout and smile. Kiryu was standing with her feet shuffling slightly. Her tail was wagging so fast the other people on the dance floor had made room for her, except for one guy who seemed to be enjoying being whipped by her fur. Her chest was thrust forward and vibrating as she wiggled her upper body, and her arms bent to her sides and forward again. She was a terrible dancer, but she looked like she was having loads of fun. "I better get down there," Nelfrey said with alarm as she started to stand. "If you think you're ready to try dancing," Syntholo began. "Dancing?" Nelfrey said in shock. "Are you sure? I thought she was having a seizure." Kayla and Syntholo burst out laughing. "I didn't say it was good dancing," Kayla giggled. "That guy behind her may need treatment for friction burns from her tail," Syntholo reassured Nelfrey, "but Kiryu is just fine." "Do you think she knows what she looks like?" Nelfrey asked. "I don't think she cares," Syntholo scoffed. "Leave her alone," Kayla chuckled. "Look at her. She's having a blast. Her tongue is even hanging out of her mouth. I didn't even know that was really a thing for Cayman." "Not generally," Nelfrey shrugged. "That's part of why I thought she was having a fit." A series of 7 beeps sounded, about a second apart. The blue light around the door frame turned off, allowing the server to enter to bring Kayla her order. Kayla smiled as Kivaza noted it was the same sort of force field portal that Cyanide had installed at the entrance of her secret cavern. "Thank you," Kayla said dismissively as the server placed her tray in front of her and stood there silently. He was a medium-complected subterran with curly hair. "I didn't order this," Kayla said as she motioned to a champagne glass which was a quarter filled with a clear pink liquid. "No, ma'am," the server said. "It was added to your order under the direction of Miss Delpani. I've been instructed to ask if it suits your palate." Kayla smirked. "So, you're supposed to just stare at me until I try it?" "Unfortunately, yes. I assure you it's non-alcoholic," the server said in a hushed tone. "It's juice from a berry that's virtually extinct." "I'm glad I brought a nurse," Kayla grumbled as she eyed the glass suspiciously. "I could test it to make sure it's safe," Syntholo offered. "I wouldn't recommend it, sir," the server said sternly. "I assure you the subtle notes of the fruit would not suit you." Kayla hesitantly lifted the glass, sniffed it, and lowered it slowly onto the tray. Kivaza's psyche flooded through her so forcefully Kayla felt as if she was drowning within her own mind. "Etrelani berry juice," Kivaza locked eyes with the server as she spoke. "Leshar sent this?" "Yes, ma'am," the server seemed confused by her reaction. "Please don't," Syntholo said urgently as he positioned himself to protect Nelfrey. "What?" Kivaza raged. "Make omelets out of her ovaries? Tear her into pieces too small to collect with tweezers? Grind every member of House Delpani into the soil and make her tend the garden on my dead homeworld? Feed her to a hungry black hole?" "It didn't sound like she intended offense," Nelfrey said fearfully. "I assure you she didn't," the server said as he started backing away from the table. "Get this out of my sight," Kivaza growled, "before I do something I won't regret." The server snatched the glass and fled from the room. Kayla emerged, as her sister self relinquished control. Nelfrey was trembling. "It's over now," Syntholo said softly, then looked at Kayla. "Isn't it? I'm so sorry Kayla stood up, walked away from the table, and stared out of the window at the people in the club below. "I wanted to go out and have some fun. It's been a rough start. I don't want to ruin everyone's night." She took off the mask and held it at her side. "I remember some of Veshtaka's life. I have a lot of Kivaza's memories, too. I know those berries. I remember them. I was never able to visit the Imperial Gardens. My mother wanted me dead, but my father took me and ran. There was a hydroponic garden on the ship. I used to get in trouble for eating every berry off the bush. Well, Veshtaka did. I remember it all as if it was my own little hands. When the homeworld was devastated, the sun destroyed, all the plants, the people, the animals, everyone and everything died with it. All that was left were the few bushes on Edikoneg's flagship. Someone must have saved one after the crash. Not all my memories are bad, but that smell. It just reminded me. No matter who I meet or where I go, I am truly alone. Maybe not in a literal sense, but I am the last Elderani. Kayla looked up in confusion. Someone was waving at her from the VIP room opposite to her own. Room 6. From this distance, with the room lighting behind them, it wasn't possible to discern their features or even their species, not with that scully cap on their head. Maybe I'll feel better after I eat something. I'm going to have fun if it kills me. As Kayla was finishing her dinner, Kiryu rushed through the door. I just got the message. Who was fucking who? Nobody, Syntholo snorted. Too bad, Kiryu pouted playfully. I thought you found a better way to loosen up Nelfree. Not while I'm here, Kayla growled, not unless she saves some for me. Nelfree raised her shoulders, lowered her head and looked over at Syntholo. Okay, Callie, Kiryu cheered. I'll arm wrestle you for third place, Syntholo smirked. Oh, what's the matter, tall, dark, and hairy, Kiryu said as she pitched her hip to the side. You're here with 3 hot bitches that want to ride you like a merry-go-round, and that's all you've got? Kayla blushed, bit her lower lip and looked back and forth at Nelfree and Syntholo. I'm going for a walk, Syntholo grumbled as he got up and started for the door. Can we continue my dance lesson when you get back? Nelfree asked excitedly. He turned his head, smiled, nodded, then left without uttering a word. I think you scared him off, Kayla chuckled, as she popped the last piece of steak into her mouth and laid her knife on the table. Kiryu giggled as Nelfree sighed. I hadn't even thought about going interspecies until I met Sin, Kayla said with a shrug. Third woman on my ship that's into him, too. What is it about him? I haven't been able to figure it out. Do you know? His hands, Nelfree said without pause. He's got great fur. It just makes me want to. Kiryu held her arms in front of her, pretended to grab onto something, and bucked her hips. I'm not sure what it is for me, Kayla shrugged. If he didn't spend most of his time in Terran form, I might have decided by now. I do like the way he moves. He's really protective without being overbearing, has a great build in the form he's in now. Kiryu thrust a napkin toward her. Take it, you're drooling. I am not drooling, Kayla insisted. I sure wouldn't turn him down, looking like that. But I'm definitely not drooling. I need another drink, Kiryu said as she bounced over to the bar. You two going to join me? I'm in, Kayla called out. Maybe a little, Nelfree said. I need to keep my feet. Kayla was unfamiliar with the expression, but didn't bother to ask. Kiryu poured 3 glasses. Let's make a pact, right here and now. If he makes a move on any of us, the other 2 will make themselves scarce until the deed is done. I couldn't, Nelfree said nervously. Couldn't give him and his choice privacy, Kayla asked as Kiryu placed the glasses on the table. Not that, I just couldn't, Nelfree sighed. I wish he was half as deep into me as he is into you, Kiryu said to Nelfree with a wolfish grin. Half, Kayla said with a raised brow. Guilty, Kiryu laughed. I want him all the way into me. Seriously, Nell, if you get the chance, take it. I promise neither of us will hold it against you. I can't, Nelfree said with a voice full of anger and sorrow. Down girl, Kayla said as she picked up her glass. Kiryu picked up her own glass and held out the third to Nelfree. Are you seriously telling me you haven't thought about it? Nelfree grabbed the glass, downed it, glared at Kiryu and bared her teeth. I've been trying not to think about it for hours. What part of I can't do you not understand? Okay, Kiryu looked a little scared. I'll drop it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Get me another drink, bitch, Nelfree growled as she held out her glass. Now you're talking my language, Kiryu giggled as she put down her glass and rushed to get Nelfree a refill. Kayla cleared her plate off the table and started adjusting the view to get a better look at the people on the lower levels. For a second there, Kiryu said as she handed Nelfree her newly filled glass. I thought you were going to jump the table and tear out my throat. I'd never do that, Nelfree smiled as she accepted the drink. I'm a nurse. I'd be obligated to sew you back up later. It's not worth the hassle. So, you're going without. I had mine earlier, so want to help Callie get hers? That I can do, Nelfree said as she sipped her drink. Well, I can try. Listen you two. Kayla started to object. Why not? I just want a little satisfaction. A little, Kiryu teased. More is better, Kayla said as she put her mask back on to hide the redness of her cheeks. Nelfree adjusted the settings on the table viewer until it displayed 4 equal-sized display areas. How did you figure that out so fast? Kayla asked, then added, I thought I did well finding the zoom function. Try spending a few years having to use new medical equipment with no documentation, no training, and customer support staff that aren't bright enough to tell you where the off button is. Maybe they were used to a different trade language, Kiryu shrugged. Did I forget to tell you I'm also a linguist? I even know a few dead languages, Nelfree scoffed. The problem is I'm not fluent in incompetent. They just don't offer a course in that. You just went to the wrong school, Kiryu snickered. I'm pretty sure they teach that at the Taz Core School of Business. Probably, Nelfree said. This screen over here is just overlooking the balcony and main floor, for tracking anyone you decide you're interested in. Each of us has our own screen for looking around. When any of us double tap on someone on our screen, it will tag them on the 4th screen. They should look like they have a glow around them and a number floating above their head. Well, if I set everything right. What happens if you set it wrong? Kiryu asked as she adjusted the camera view on the screen in front of her. I'll make you call tech support. Nelfree stuck out her tongue. Kayla giggled. Her mood was definitely improving. Kiryu nursed her drink while watching Nelfree's screen. You have your own screen, Nelfree snapped. Aren't we supposed to be helping her find someone suitable? I'm going to, Kiryu scoffed. I was just thinking while trying to figure out what turns you on. Well, other than Syntholo. Didn't we agree to drop that? Nelfree snapped. Kiryu grinned and said something in either bestial common or a Cayman dialect. Nelfree smirked and responded as she started zooming in on someone. Would you two mind speaking a language I can understand? Kayla said to prevent the likely argument from getting heated. Here's one, Nelfree said as she zoomed in on a well-dressed Shamfarian sitting at the bar. He looks like he has some class. I wanted to try something different, Kayla said. Nelfree shifted the viewing angle as she spoke. There's a Darien over here, a Dareth over there, and I think I saw a Zill by the dance floor a second ago. No Subterrans, Kayla said firmly. I want to try something new and different. Where did he go? Kiryu said as she moved her screen around rapidly. I saw a guy while I was down there earlier. I thought he could be a reasonable first step for you. Definitely the kind of guy that might be into it. Most Terran-centric businesses promote their own over-counter hominids. In order to be competitive in business like that, some workers will go to extremes. Where did he go? What species? Nelfree asked. Lupian, Kiryu said while staring at the screen. Gray fur, chiseled physique, bare chest and arms, and blue jeans. Found him, Kiryu said merrily. I'll finish zooming as soon as people stop walking past. I'm surprised you didn't go after him yourself, Nelfree goaded. Not a chance, Kiryu said emphatically. When I said bare I meant it. He's shaved. Nelfree turned her attention to Kayla. Most of us won't give shaved guys the time of day. He may prefer fleshies, but with less options available to him he'd be more receptive to you. Kayla looked over at Kiryu's screen as she finished zooming in and focusing on the Lupian. His tail, head, neck, and shoulders had long, dense, gray fur. From his upper chest down to the belt around his waist he was completely shaved and tattooed. She bit her lower lip and looked back and forth between her companions. I had a brief conversation with him earlier, Kiryu said with a big smile. He's a fighter mechanic. He looks a little mean, but he seems like a pretty decent guy. Let me guess, Nelfree chided. You turned him down cold. Of course, Kiryu laughed. If he has so little pride that he actually shaved to please some middle management paper pusher, why would I want him? No, Kayla said. He does have a sturdy build, but if I'm going to go interspecies, I want the full experience. If I went for him, I feel like I'm only going halfway. It would be like ruling out Terrans, then screwing a Monguni. Nelfree deselected the Monguni she just double-tapped, and moved her camera angle quickly, hoping nobody would notice. Kiryu finished her drink. I'm going to see if there's a pitcher over by the bar so I don't have to get up every time we need a refill. Great idea, Nelfree said. You'd make a great waitress. Kiryu held up a fist, extended her little finger, and wiggled it. You first, Nelfree laughed, then realized Kayla didn't know that gesture. It means kiss my tail. Oh, Kayla giggled. That limits things a little, Kiryu said as she found a pitcher and started filling it. You're wanting a good pounding, right? So, can we write off the weirdos with a petting fetish? Kiryu, Nelfree yelled. Show some respect. She's not wrong, Kayla blushed. Kiryu refilled everyone's glasses before sitting back down. Okay Callie, what kind of guys are you attracted to? Other than Syntholo, Nelfree said as she grinned across the table at the white caiman. Kayla fidgeted with her skirt. I'm really not sure. There's no way of telling what kinds of guys would be interested in me. As long as you don't mind keeping that mask on, I'm sure there are tons of canine guys that would love some private time with you. Just make sure they agree to give you yours as part of the deal. Kiryu chuckled softly. There's one thing Terran girls can do that we can't. What's that? Kayla asked in confusion. Instead of answering, both of her canine friends made a display of their teeth. Kayla smirked. No, seriously. You brought it up, Nelfree said in obvious discomfort. You can explain it. You two talk, Kiryu said as she pulled out her tablet and started entering something into it. Nelfree turned to face Callie. There are loads of species out there, but if you want to know about which ones it's biologically possible to have sexual intercourse with, your selections are a bit more limited. Are Lamentics and hybrids, all the Terran types, and Monguni. They're all species adjacent. Moving further from that, you have all the caninoid species. For males, the felinoid species are an option, too. I know Cheshire have spines on their pricks, Kayla said. I was told Karzon don't, so why are you saying no women with them? Is just. Nelfree began. A huge disappointment, Kiryu laughed so hard she barked several times. Is this some feline-canine rivalry thing? Kayla snickered. A friend of mine told me a story about a pygmy Karzon they were with, and they told me her dick was a good size. Kiryu laughed. It would take a lot of embellishment to make a 3-inch cock a good size, and that's being way too generous. 3 inches would be huge for a Karzon. Wait. Nelfree insisted, her dick? Whose dick was it? It's not really my story to tell, Kayla said sheepishly. Apparently some female pygmy Karzon are born with pseudo-penises and they're usually removed at birth. Maybe the girls have bigger cocks than the guys. Kiryu laughed hard enough to have a barking fit. I guess we know why the males are so aggressive, Nelfree giggled uncontrollably. Kayla tried to be serious, but failed. If the women have larger cocks, they have to cut them off to prevent extinction. A beep sounded through the room as Syntholo returned. He walked over to the other booth and made himself comfortable without interrupting their continued laughter. After the three women had finally contained themselves, Nelfrey turned to talk quietly with Syntholo while Kiryu showed Kayla some videos she'd looked up on her tablet. So if I want to be with a cannonoid, Kayla said in disgust as she reviewed the videos, they'll expect me to do this? Nelfrey leaned over and glanced at the screen. Most likely. That's the most common reason Cayman guys are willing to go interspecies, Kiryu shrugged. Let's change the subject before we make him uncomfortable again. What's this about? Syntholo directed his question to Nelfrey. Fel Laisho, Nelfrey answered in a formal tone. Would you like me to send you a link to a seminar on the topic? Syntholo chuckled dryly. It covers logistical considerations, common practices, and a variety of techniques. Wait, Mr. I run from women that want to fuck me has access to blowjob seminars? Kiryu seemed shocked by the revelation. Weren't you there when he said he was a scout for the Kailani Dominion? Nelfrey scoffed. I don't remember him saying that. She wasn't there, yet, Kayla affirmed. With my teeth, all I can do is lick it like a lollipop, Kiryu complained. Send me a copy too. I'd love to learn some new tricks. Callie can forward it to you, Syntholo snickered as a received message indicator popped up on Kayla's communicator. I'll send it now, Kayla said happily. She sent a copy of the link to Kiryu, and a request to Syntholo for a similar video to help Kivaza prepare a surprise for the next time her Tejmare visits. Not that I'd want to, but are there any other species it's possible for me to have sex with? Kayla asked. Rakushan have two heads on top. What do they have on the bottom? Don't feel bad, Kiryu shrugged. I wouldn't screw a rat, but I've always wondered about that too. The shaft is wider than normal ones, and it forks into two tips at the end, Nelfrey said. The only other possible species I can think of is Kimseti, but good luck finding one around these parts. I killed one here a while back, but no. The idea of flying around while having sex sounds interesting, but let's stick with species that have eyes. Oh wait, Kayla said nervously. What's it like having sex with someone that has a baculum? Normal, everyone else said in unison. Kayla pouted. Subterrans, Monguni, and Eldarani hybrids don't have penis bones, Syntholo elaborated. Nearly every other species does. Not having one is weird and a bit uncomfortable. Does that mean when you shape shift? Kayla stammered. Wonder you don't want anyone to see you change. Are there any others? Kayla desperately changed the subject. Reptilians, aquatic types. I don't know. Anything? There is one more, Nelfrey said as she had another drink, but I'm not sure I should mention it around the size queen. Maiko are canine, Kiryu snorted, and I am not a size queen. Size princess maybe. Actually, Nelfrey whispered, Shega have bigger ones than Lupians. The amphibians, Kayla shuddered. Just no. This entire endeavor seems a bit selfish, Syntholo grumbled. It's a bar, Kiryu scoffed, half the people here are looking for some bouncy time. I just figure these things are just about a little self-gratification for everyone involved, Kayla shrugged. As long as everything is consensual, Syntholo said softly, then fell silent. Okay, let's find some prospects so we can guide her to them once she's down there, Nelfrey said as she stared at the screen in front of her. This will be fun, Kiryu giggled. Let's see how many times the legendary Lady Darkseid gets turned down. Bad dog, Nelfrey chided. No, it's fine, Kayla said with a forced sigh. You never forget your first, right Syntholo? First what? Syntholo grumbled. First rejection of the night, Kayla giggled as she topped off her glass. What species do you want to try tonight? Kiryu teased. Why settle for one? Kayla giggled. She knew her current confidence was 1 part alcohol, 1 part Nelfry's faith in her, and 5 parts Kiryu's bluster, but she was also painfully aware the moment she stepped out the door it would all evaporate. Okay, I'll be serious. I really want to explore my sexuality, but I don't know how far I'm really willing to go. I'm sure I have limits. I just want to try to find them tonight. Out of the available options, Lupians have longer snouts, so let's rule them out for now. Let's start with people with head shapes closer to Terran, okay? The 3 women searched through the crowd. What about him? Kiryu asked as she tracked a yellow-furred caiman with white spots. I don't think I like spots, Kayla said after a moment of consideration. Him, Nelfry said as she rested her finger on a canine with reddish fur on their shoulders, upper arms, and underside of their tail. The fur on their slender arms, the top of their tail and fox-like face was black. They were currently on the dance floor, and were rather graceful. They're pretty, Kayla blushed. Nelfry double-tapped them on the display. A halo appeared around them and a 1 was shown above their head on the tracking display. They're vulpine, Kiryu snarled. And their arms will complement nicely, Nelfry pointed out as she traced the color gradient as it darkened from a light golden color at Kayla's upper arm to the black of her hands. They'd look fantastic dancing together. He's built a bit like Syntholo, just less muscular, and Syntholo's hands are. Look who's drooling this time, Callie teased. I can't stand vulpine guys, Kiryu grumbled. They're all suave elitists. In other words, you don't think he'd give you the time of day, Nelfry taunted. That's just one more way he reminds me of Syntholo. Let's see if he'll bite in Callie's direction. I feel so objectified, Syntholo said playfully. Was that a complaint? Nelfry asked coyly. Not really, Syntholo chuckled. He's cute, Kayla said as she moved her screen to center it on a young-looking male with a short, narrow snout and a roughly Terran-sized head. If it wasn't for his fluffy tail and hilariously long pointed ears, she might have mistaken him for a sub-Terran at a glance. Shishan, the other girls said in unison. Is that bad? Kayla asked nervously. Nasty, Kiryu pretended to gag. They're half Cayman, half Cheshire. I admit it's a racial bias, but the real caninoid species see them as a good option for her, Nelfry said while glaring at Kiryu, as long as their father wasn't the Cheshire. If they're barb-free, and she's attracted to them, what's the problem? Shishan have a hell of a time finding partners anyway. He's more likely to go for a Terran. It's better than a sympathy fuck from another bestial. I get it, Kiryu shivered. I just couldn't. Nobody's asking you to, Syntholo scolded. She might like a guy that won't insist she suck him off before having sex with her, like those normal Cayman guys you were talking about earlier, Nelfry snarled. Not impersonating a vacuum sounds good to me, Kayla said with relief. He's a keeper as long as he's not all spiky. This one's a definite, Kiryu said as she double-tapped someone standing in the observation area. Wait, which one? Kayla said urgently. Right here, Kiryu said as she zoomed in to try to zoom back in on them. I'm going after them myself. I'm game to ask if they mind if you join in. If you're not up for a tag team, that's fine too. Bitch, Kayla laughed. I thought you two were trying to help me. I am, Kiryu blushed so brightly it could be seen through the white fur on her cheeks. What can I say? He's my type. Kayla grinned evilly. Brown fur, pretty blue eyes, good sturdy build. I'll see if he's interested, and if he is, maybe I'll consider letting you have a turn if he has any spunk left after I'm done with him. At least I offered to share, Kiryu said with the fakest pout Kayla had ever seen. Don't worry, Kayla chided. I'll just refuse to suck him off first to keep things fair. Worst case scenario, if he can't keep it up for you, I have 3 tails, if you beg nice, I can fuck you myself. You. Kiryu stammered. Damn, Challenge accepted. I think, Syntholo chuckled as Nelfree literally howled with laughter. Didn't expect that, bitch, did you? I really didn't. Kiryu looked embarrassed, and pretended to fan herself. Did someone turn up the climate control system? They all laughed, even Syntholo. Okay, we all picked one, that makes 3. I've been trying to ignore you 3, Syntholo said as he slid out of the second booth, walked over and stood in front of their display table. 3 what, and depending on what you're selecting, would you mind if I pick one? I wouldn't mind, Nelfree said as she raised her shoulders, lowered her head and looked away from him. We're helping her pick people for Callie to try flirting with to see if they're interested in with her. I doubt you'd mind what he did, including bending you over the table in front of the rest of us and... Kiryu muttered. Kiryu, Kayla roared. That's enough, Syntholo smiled down at Kayla appreciatively. May I select one? Go ahead, Callie smiled warmly. Without zooming or panning the view screen, Syntholo double-tapped someone sitting at the bar. I choose him. A Karzan, the 3 women said in shock after zooming in on his selection. Pygmy Karzan, actually, Syntholo said with a devious little smile. The smaller variant of the species was rarely seen outside of their home systems. They look a bit scruffy, Nelfree observed. They even have spots, Kiryu objected. I'm guessing that's his girlfriend, Syntholo said as a casually dressed female pygmy Karzan walked over and sat next to him. The more the merrier. What do you think? Is it time to let your tail down? I'll do it, Kayla said with determination as she stared into Syntholo's twinkling eyes, while liberating her black tail. As Kayla strode out of the room, she could hear the others continuing preparing for the next stage of their evening. Shall we continue your lesson? Syntholo asked. Most definitely, Nelfree squealed. Fine. I guess I'll monitor the club, Kiryu sighed. Somebody needs to have her back.